Welcome to the Four Visions Market Podcast, a space built on the principles of integrity and reciprocity. Together, we will engage in thought-provoking conversations about plant medicines, why these plants are coming out of the rainforest, jungles, and mountains after thousands of years, and what it means to be in right relationship with the ancestral wisdom cultures and guardians of these traditions. I'm your host, Mariah Ganessa, founder and director of Four Visions Market. This podcast is the natural evolution in our commitment to providing you, our tribe, with incredible resources to support you on your healing journey through plant medicines. Welcome home. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I'm joined by my co-host and brother today, Kash Khan. Welcome.
Hi, Mariah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Today on the show, we are very blessed to have a longtime medicine brother of mine, Leo Cordero, on to share a little bit about his journey with healing in the realms of Ayurvedic sciences and shamanic healing within the culture of Yagé. It's such an honor to have Leo on the show. He really is full of so much wisdom, so much beauty, so much presence. And we really go into a little bit of a portal of downloads where he is just sharing gems of really how to live well, how to live this good living that is spoken about in the culture of Yagé. Leo and I have studied together in this culture for the last decade, working with the Taitas of the Ingano tribe of Putumayo, Colombia, diving deep in the cosmovision of the celestial realms of the culture of Yagé, drinking medicine together, studying, healing, learning at the foot of the Taitas. And today he talks a lot about what this experience is like, what his path of healing has been, and how he started his journey and how he became to be in this role of being of service that he finds himself in today. So it's a really beautiful conversation. We hope you enjoy it. And thank you so much for tuning in.
A quick word from our sponsors before we begin this episode.
This episode is brought to you by Magic Fund Amazon. Four Visions Market is proud to be in partnership with Magic Fund, a nonprofit organization that works as a movement for Amazonian growth and indigenous cultures. Magic Fund focuses primarily in the Putumayo region of the Colombian Amazon, spearheading various initiatives that focus on the preservation of indigenous culture, land, and the health of the traditional peoples that live there. Magic Fund recently launched a new campaign that is called Planting Magic. Through this initiative, we are currently fundraising to be able to steward 50 hectares of land in the Colombian Amazon in order to plant and reforest the land with native endangered medicinal plant species. We believe that these sacred plants, if conserved and protected, can bring forth healing for all of humanity in the generations to come. Like many places in the world, the Amazon is under constant threat of encroachment. 17% of the Amazon rainforest has been lost in the last 50 years. An increased interest in the healing benefits of these plants threatens their survival. As these ancestral plants continue to come out of the jungle to be shared with the West, the dire need to plant and replant these medicines becomes more and more apparent. So we invite you to join us in planting magic and leaving a legacy for the future generations so that these medicines continue to accompany humanity for many years to come. Visit Magic Fund Amazon to learn more and to join the movement. Welcome, Leo. It is a great honor to have you on this podcast. I'm so excited to get to share you, my beautiful brother, with the Four Visions Market community. It's a great pleasure to welcome you onto the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm very honored myself. I feel very grateful, for the opportunity of sharing with people, with an audience, listeners, people, walkers, spiritual paths of all natures. It's a wonderful thing to be able to share. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity that you're bringing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Leo, we've known each other for almost a decade now. It's pretty crazy to think about the last 10 years we've had together on this path. But I would love for you to start out by introducing yourself to our listeners and share a little bit about your journey with how you got into plant medicines, how you came to the spiritual path, as well as anything that you feel called to share about your personal healing journey and how you came into the work that you do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it all started like at some point, somewhere around my early 30s. I kind of like had a really cool life. I was living in a very nice setting. I had a great job. Everything was like set over there. Everything was nice. And I got bored. Like I was living in an island on the Caribbean and I got like bored with the normal living. And there was a friend of mine. We were sharing the same house and she used to read books, self-help books. And she was dating my best friend who was also living there. And one day he asked me to go and find a gift for her birthday. And I said, let's go get her a book. And so we went and found a book. And I chose the book kind of like for myself, thinking that I was going to read it afterwards. It was a very simple book, the Celestine Prophecy, nothing very deep in itself in terms of spiritual matter, or theory. But then after she read it, I read it, and that was kind of like a sudden awakening out of the matrix, like sudden, immediate. When it comes to me, like before that time, like I was a complete believer of everything that the matrix brought or had, like everything. And I had done everything by the book. I had had kids. I had gotten married. I have studied. I have like everything. Like I even had businesses and stuff. And I didn't find any like accomplishment or feeling of like depth in it. Simultaneous to that book, I remember I used to go to the gym with a friend. And one day I walked in the gym and I'm like, this is so boring. I don't want to do this anymore. And a new manager had come for the company. And he came from the US all the way to the island. And for some reason, he brought a stack of yoga journal magazines this big. And he came to my desk and he sat them there and he's like, I think this is for you. And I'm like, okay. So I took them home and started reading them. And I became very impressed, with what yoga was at that time. And so I searched for a yoga teacher in the island. That later on, interesting thing was because I went through a whole process with the practice of yoga for many years and many different traditions and teachers. And the interesting thing is that she was the tradition that I ended up like following, Kriya Yoga and like the path of Paramhansa Yogananda and Lahiri Mahasaya and Shri Yukteswar Giri. So it was very interesting for me because she was teaching and I had only gym in my mind. But I became very disciplined with her practices. And within 2 weeks, I saw a shift in my whole energy, in my way of walking and conversing. Like it all slowed down radically. And I wasn't doing asana, really. I was just kind of like just breathing and moving my wrists and like the shoulders and the head. Very simple. I did those practices for like 2 months until on the third month is when she introduced me to asana. And then after that, it was time to leave the island. The contract was over and I left back to the US to live there for a little while, coming and going. And I decided to like study more yoga. And then life itself led me to an Ayurvedic center. I was searching for a yoga institute to like become a certified teacher. And I was biking. I got to a corner. I was asking a couple of persons about this yoga institute. And they said, yeah, just keep going 2 more blocks and then turn left. And over there, you'll see a big sign that says yoga. And it happened to be an Ayurvedic center. a fully operational Ayurvedic center with therapies and like restaurants and the whole thing. I walked in, and to make the story short, I started serving them with financial services that I provided. And I ended up studying Ayurveda without even understanding what is it I was studying. So for a couple of years, I went through an Ayurvedic training as a clinical consultant and as a Panchakarma therapist. And I kept studying yoga, and I kept studying meditation and breath work and those Indian practices. Then I moved back to Costa Rica, and then I became a Panchakarma therapist for about 12 years, 15 years. I did that and taught yoga for, same time, and kept practicing meditation. And when it came to meditation, I started with Transcendental Meditation, and then I studied the technique of that Amaji. It's called I Am. I practiced that technique. And then I studied other techniques of healing. I just became very interested in healing because the thing is that doing therapy, I came to the understanding that there was an aspect of consciousness within the therapist that was essential in order to provide therapy. And people were coming to me to find like a holistic solution. And there was always one aspect, which was the invisible aspect. I mean, I would help them, with colonics, with liver flushes, with different Ayurvedic therapies, Ayurvedic massage, and different healing techniques. But there was always this invisible aspect that I was very attracted to, to work with, to bring a solution to the person, besides all the Ayurvedic therapy in itself. So I kept studying different techniques. I don't know, like 8 different techniques of healing, like pranic healing, rising star healing method, and cryon healing, and so on. Several techniques of healing. And if we go back to the very beginning, it was always about me. It was never about becoming a healer. I never wanted to be a healer. All I wanted was just to teach yoga. And I never wanted to be a healer. And here I am, So for many, many years, I wanted to actually step out of the healing, like Ayurveda and even shamanic healing. But life in itself will always like guide me back into that, And then years passed, and then I met Taita Juanito. He was visiting Costa Rica at the very beginning, and a friend of mine, I was working at that time in a healing center, and a friend of mine, one of the healers there, was driving him around, and she was inviting me, but I was like, eh. And then they called me from that same healing center, and they said, hey, we're going to be hosting Taita Juan for a couple of private ceremonies, and the owner would like you to come, and she's going to pay for your ceremonies. So I'm like, that sounds kind of like straightforward, life's kind of like telling me to come. So I went to be with him 2 ceremonies over there, and then I followed him to one more ceremony outside. And then I felt really clearly, that I wanted to follow him and to be with him. And I felt like a release, that I had not felt in all the other things that I was doing. I already had a practice with Vipassana technique, meditation, and regular practice of yoga. And then I started following Taita, which is actually 10 years ago. 10 years and 2 days ago, I drank for the first time with Taita Juan in Costa Rica. And I started following him. And again, I wasn't looking to be a healer, or all I wanted was just to take care of myself, find a solution, find organization of my energy, calmness of the mind, and stability of the emotion. The other practices, they have always been there for the past 20 years. And they have always been like the grounding practices, the practices that have kept the body aligned and that keep everything under perspective. And then the medicine, I followed the path very strongly for the past decade. And last year I took for the first break, for 7 months And that was actually very good also. And so at this moment, I dedicate myself to help with the medicine every now and then, serving a little bit of or sharing a little bit of medicine under the guidance of the Taitas. I also work now with Taita Luis, who's Taita Juanito's brother, and studying with him as well. And soon I'm going to start working again with Ayurveda, a little bit more hands-on with clients. I'm setting up to like maybe work with that a little bit more. And that's kind of like a summary of the story.
Hi, Leo. I really loved your summary. Thank you very much for sharing. I have a question. You mentioned how in the beginning you started with yoga, then you progressed to different modalities, and then Ayurveda. And then after many years, you drank Yagé for the first time with Taita Juan. I'm curious to know how all these tools that you had built over the years supported you in your first ceremony, because many people do ceremonies without these tools. So I'm interested to know which tools helped you the most and how your first ceremonies were and how you were able to navigate them and which tools supported you the most. Yeah.
So there is something with me that is different from everybody else, I would say. Everybody's different anyhow. But there is something with me, which is that I never came to any of these things knowing. None of them. I would say the only two things that I kind of like knew about and that I came on or approached them on purpose were yoga and meditation. But I would say meditation, I kind of like researched it a little bit more, but not even yoga. I don't know, maybe it's my mind type, Ayurvedically speaking. But it takes me time to like figure things out. And that's one of the reasons why I become so dedicated to the practices, because I require time to like grasp it. And so I keep going and going and going until I go like, now I get it, So for example, I studied Ayurveda, and I studied Ayurveda because the doctor was right there and she kept saying, hey, come and study Ayurveda. And I'm like, okay, I'll come. And so I went to study, but I didn't know what I was studying. And after the first year, which was theory, the second year was clinicals. After the first year, I'm like, okay, this is Ayurveda. And so the second year, I restarted the first year simultaneously while doing the clinicals. So when I came to drink medicine, I didn't know what I was doing. And that was something, for example, now, if somebody wants to come to drink medicine, let's say where the Taitas are, they will find people like me or like many, many healers, many followers. And there is already like a set energy, with Westerners. But when I came to drink with Taita Juan for the first time, really there were no Westerners. It was just the Taita and Colombians. And I had no clue what was going on. I had no clue what it was. Now it's a lot easier, I would say. Everything is clear. It's you can always come to somebody like you or Mariah or me, a Westerner, and receive easier guidance, on how is it that it works for a Westerner to approach these paths. Whereas when I started with all these things, I was just searching for, as I said, inner healing, but I was just there in the middle of nowhere, like left in the middle of the jungle, and figure it yourself, and see what happens. To answer your question, the practices that I had did hold me. They helped me, but there was an ignorance of what is it that these practices are trying to achieve. And I think that is the most important thing out of everything. Why is it that we're drinking medicine? Why is it that we're doing yoga? Why is it we're meditating? Why is it we're doing all these practices? What is it we're trying to achieve? And when one finds that or understands that aspect, which ultimately is just to be present and to not be thinking, to just be in service, to learn that we have to engage with life and do life and live life, and just a few more things, details that are very simple, then everything makes sense. Then you can drink medicine and then everything is fine. But the way that it was given to me, which was, okay, now become an Ayurvedic therapist. And then I came back to Costa Rica, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, should I go back to an office and work with finances and so? Or no, I better do this, do yoga, do meditation, and do Ayurveda because it's cooler, I like it more. And then there I am, and then like trying to learn the whole thing, on my own. And it's the same with the medicine. But the practices, definitely the Indian practices, I feel they hold the space, what the Taitas call about the other 50%, which is we go drink medicine, receive healing, and then go live life and figure out life in a nice way. And Ayurveda, as a science of life or a lifestyle science, is very grounding, because then you don't get lost in the sea of information that is out there.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Leo. So, Leo, I wanted to touch a little bit more about this process that you had, really being one of the first Westerners to work closely with the Taitas of this lineage, the Ingano lineage, working with the family of Taita Juan and Taita Lucho at the very beginning. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about what this process was like for you. You alluded to it a little bit a few minutes ago, speaking about those first years, really there being no reference point for a Westerner coming into this culture, and what it was like, coming into this 5,000-year-old tradition as an outsider. But you were really pivotal. You were one of the most important people within this community that played a role in bringing the Yagé out of the jungle and supporting the Taitas in beginning to share more with the outside world. And so I wanted to ask you to expand a little bit about what that experience was like for you, what maybe you encountered and challenges or in beauty and lessons that came along with the experience, and how you take this role, this honor of really being that bridge for the Taitas and accompanying them, getting to learn with the Taitas so closely and getting to study at the foot of this ancestral tradition.
It was brutal. It was quite hard. It was not easy, honestly. It was because the thing is that I didn't know. I didn't know what is it, what it was. They talk about summa causai, good living. And I came from a normal tradition. Normal tradition means anybody that is not awakened, like completely identified with the mind and the thought. And then the problem there is that the Taitas don't speak that much. And when they speak, it's hard to grasp somehow. Like I came to understand Taita Juanito clearly. And the Taitas fully, like this year. Like clearly. And I'm like, now when he speaks or any of them speak, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Now I understand. But at the beginning, I was there resolving my inner things without knowing really what that meant. And so drinking medicine, one thing that was clear, which could be very good for the listeners to understand, is this. Something that I grasped, over the years, is this thing that, we go drink medicine, but then we have to go back home and we really need to do the work. And what that means is we really need to start silencing ourselves, letting go of the usual belief systems, and like silencing the mind. Very, very important to silence the mind. Very important to stop the reactivity towards life. Very important to just flow with life and let life be. very important to engage with life in the doing as a gift that is given to us by spirit, as a gift that life in itself is, just the opportunity to be alive in itself is something that is undervalued. So they say, there's a saying, I think, in Tibetan culture, that the odds of us incarnating in the body compared as if the whole earth would be only an ocean, no earth would be, or no soil, only ocean, one ocean. And that there's this turtle swimming. This is how they portray it. There's this turtle swimming in the ocean, and it comes out once every 100 years. And then there's like a canoe or something floating on the surface. And the odds of us incarnating are the same as if this turtle would come out once every 100 years and would meet that canoe, would come out and bump that with that canoe or that thing that is floating on the surface. That's the odds. So from there, we have this belief system, that we have to have a friction with life, resistance with life, and that there's something with life that we were taught, that there's something always that is wrong. There's a problem. There's a problem making a belief system, of seeing life, with some sort of friction. And if we're able to learn to not have that friction and to flow, into acceptance, and to learn about surrendering, and to learn about silencing the mind, then we do not reestablish the things that the medicine is cleansing. Because what happens is that, we drink medicine, and the medicine helps us in cleansing, and then we receive the healing from the healers and the taitas, and the energy is cleaner. But then we reactivate all these patterns through thinking. And then the healing takes longer, and the process becomes a little bit more painful for the person. So it's not the medicine where we have to put all of our eggs, that's not the only basket. What that means is we receive medicine, we receive healing, and then from there, we might get vision, we might get an understanding, we might get insights, we might get consulta, they say, we might understand more of who we are. But then immediately as we step into life, we embrace life, whatever it is. And we start resolving everything, all the inner dilemmas. We start letting go, and at that moment, then everything starts grounding and making sense. And that's probably the best thing to understand when it comes to work with plant medicine. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that, Leo. Beautiful insights. Earlier on, when you started talking, I think it's important to educate the listeners, some may be less educated than others, on the different kinds of lineages and traditions. And we're talking about the path of Yagé, which is a Colombian tradition. And we talk about taitas. We don't really use the word shaman in this tradition. And I'm interested to understand more about this, the difference between a taita and a shaman, and how we often talk about taita as a teacher, someone that we learn from, and people follow taita. Because I know for me, definitely when I do plant medicine, I have a deep connection with spirit, and we receive a lot of messages from the spirit of ayahuasca, and taita is a channel for this. And I'm curious to know, in your 10 years or more of experience working with taita in this plant medicine base, the difference with the taita and the shaman, and how these taitas become a channel for spirit, and how we can learn not only from the medicine, but also from the taitas as well.
Can I also just add to this question? Just share with our listeners a little bit about the culture of Yagé, what it is, where it comes from.
Okay, so the word taita means father. So even in Inga, you can call them your father. You can call taita. Lately, I've been gaining a little bit more understanding of really the power of taitas. Taita is a person that is in the present moment constantly. Everything is right here now. Mm-hmm. So when a person is drinking medicine, what the taitas are facilitating for that person is to connect more and more with the energy of nature, with the vibration of nature. So a shaman is a healer, pretty much. So not every healer is a taita, but a taita is already a healer. So yeah, a person can be channeling, and the ability of channeling, which is silence in the mind, full presence, and then other qualities that are given by the taitas and by the medicine, like chants or the ability to handle the different tools that come with the medicine. Then the person, a healer, can provide, a good channeling for the client. The channeling happens right there when the healing is happening. The person is right there. The healer is sitting there with the person. And at that moment, it's pretty much spirit and the medicine, doing the healing. Whenever the healer goes into the mind, then that gets disturbed. The more the healer is present there in the silence and in that channeling energy, the better it is for the person that is receiving and for the healer as well, and for everything. In my case, I have only been in the Yagé path. I have not been in any other plant medicine path. I always stayed there. And since the beginning, I remember for some reason I was being invited here in Costa Rica by friends. Hey, there's this taita or this maracame from peyote coming, or this and that, or there's this other tradition. And for some reason, I don't even know why, because I never knew. I was just kind of like inside. I'm like, I feel that I want to study this thing alone, and see. I don't feel ready to go and do other medicines now. So my understanding of this path, of the Inca people come from the Incas. The Incas were walkers and gatherers and researchers of lands. So they came down from Peru onto the Amazons, and then they followed the Putumayo River, and then there's different tribes or territories of the Inca people in different parts of the Putumayo area, which is the southern part, the Amazonian part of Colombia. Taita Luis, for example, he lives in the Condagua territory, which is close to the Yunguillo territory, but there's others that live up on the mountains also. They are mostly botanists and experts in plants. And so they gain the information of the medicine of Yagé from the Sionas and from the Cofanes, is my understanding. But this is a long time ago, so they're people of the medicine as well. Taita Juanito and Taita Luis, they both studied with a grandfather from the Siona tradition. And these are people of Yagé, people that have always, for thousands of years, had the medicine there. And so these two taitas, they carry that energy of the Sionas, but they're mainly Incas now. And the medicine in itself is a path of just that, connecting with nature. And that's a very interesting thing. People sometimes ask me, what is it that the chants are saying? And the chants are just calling nature, So the medicine in itself is a vehicle of consciousness. So the person that is serving the medicine is very important in that role, because the consciousness of the person, the purity of the person, of the heart and the mind, is transmitted through the medicine for the person to bring it into their own system, into their own energy field. So that is something very particular about the medicine. When one drinks taitas, for example, they see everything and they have a bigger understanding, or a deep or a wide understanding of what the person is. Receiving their medicine is a very good thing. I remember Taita Juan saying one time, he said, receiving medicine from the grandfather is one of the best things you can do, So I always kept that in my mind, like, okay, whenever I'm drinking with taitas, I want to drink as much as possible, even if it's a little bit. This Saturday, I drank with Taita Carlos, the other brother, his three brothers. And I remember going to drink again. And I said, okay, I'm very, very drunk, I said, in the medicine at this moment, but please serve me a little bit because I want your blessing. I want to receive your blessing, your chants, your guidance through the medicine. So at the beginning, when we drink medicine, normally we drink more medicine than later in later stages. Then we need less medicine to work with. The medicine, what it's doing is aligning the person with nature, with what is natural, and removing those things that are unnatural, things that are not serving anymore. And that involves belief system, thought patterns, thought processes, and fears, traumas, and attachments, which are all the same thing ultimately. And then it goes back in time, or it goes, I wouldn't even say back in time, because sometimes when they are explaining, they say the medicine goes to the beginning of the origin. And then we see it in a linear way. Okay, I'm here, and then it goes to the beginning of the origin, and then we figure it's something in the past, and so. And then it works with our genealogy, let's say. And then we start like thinking, okay, that person that existed a long time ago, that I come from, and so. But everything is now, here, within. So that beginning of the origin is the very essence that we are. So the medicine goes within ourselves, within who we are, to the origin of the essence of what we are, which is the very naturalness of what we are, our nature. And then from there, all the experiences and everything that is in our consciousness, that it could be unknown, that it could be known, that it could be hidden, that it could be covered, or that we have covered, or that we have kept aside, all those things, the medicine goes there and brings them out. The medicine is a purgative, it's a cleanser. So it cleanses the physical body, it cleanses the emotional body, mental body, and aiming to bring consciousness back to that essence, to the very essence that we are. So bringing us back to nature, to our own nature, to naturalness. And so that's why all these chants, they carry the consciousness, for example, of the river or the water. We could go to the very essence, So it carries the essence of the 5 elements, or the 4 elements. We could say the earth, the water, the fire, and the wind. And the space. In Ayurveda, there's another space. There's another element that is called the space, which is where everything exists. And if you go into Chinese medicine, they have the metal and they have the wood as well. So it goes to all these very essential things of what we are. And from there, it's bringing us back to those memories of that ancestral reality. So when it says ancestral reality, we're not referring to the ancestors. We're referring to that very essence, to the naturalness, to what we are, the reality of what we are. And then from there, that starts arising. So the chants, they take us to the wind. It's called the wind or the river or the water or the trees, or maybe the essence of a flower, or the essence of a particular plant that is brought because it could be helping at that moment for that person. So that's the expansion of those chants. And also the consciousness of the healer, the taita, that is also calling and bringing that and organizing the different aspects within the spirit of the person. That's kind of like what it is. Mm-hmm. So in that process, the medicine could create a purgative effect, which is cleansing, bringing out the unnatural. But in that moment, 2 things are happening. One is the unnatural is being taken out and a space is being left over there for pure energy to come in, which is the wisdom. Like the Juan says that the medicine is a book of wisdom that we drink. So that wisdom comes in. And what that means is that those are seeds of consciousness that are planted in the consciousness of the person. And those seeds, they need to be cultivated. When this is what we spoke about earlier, that the person needs to go back home and then engage in living life in what they call summa causae, which is good living. But then the thing there is that what does that mean? What is good living? So and that's where they teach through example. They teach through the word, like for example, what we're doing now, sharing the word. And it's very important to observe people, see, the way they act. And it all comes to keeping a good thinking, because, and I can say this very clearly from the perspective of a Westerner that grew up in normality. There's so many belief systems, wrong belief systems, and they want to arise, and then what we're gaining with the medicine and the different practices is a strength in order to guide the mind correctly. So that's the very first aspect of everything. The grandfather used to say, think good and think of God. And that's the whole summary of everything. So keeping the mind in a good thought. So for example, judgment, we could see somebody, and judgment is very ingrained in culture, in modern world. We're judging everything. So for example, the ability to stop judgment, right there at that moment, you're allowing life to be. You're accepting everything. You're not fighting anything. You're not having any resistance. So you need to train your mind to become stronger, to not judge, and to just let things be. And then from there, when you start gaining this energy or these abilities, inner strength arises in the person for more. More gifts are given, because the path of spirit, or this inner path, is based on merits. So these merits mean how much effort is the person putting, to make all these things happen. So the very first thing, as I was saying, is keeping a good thought and filtering the thought, learning to filter the thought. And then when the thought becomes overwhelmed and the energy becomes turbulent, then we need to apply ourselves, with other practices, I would say, or shamanic practices, to bring our energy back to center in order to gain again the strength to continue and to be right there. So that would be the beginning of everything, keeping a good thought. And then all these things will eventually lead to just love, to just loving life. And then from this loving of life, then we want to engage. Then we want to do. Some people get lost in what is my dharma, what is my purpose, what is it I need to do with life, where do I need to go, am I a healer, am I an artist, who am I, It doesn't matter. If you keep the good thinking, then there's this love for life that arises, and then you just do. You just do what is there, and then life will bring more. And then you will gain more clarity. So it all starts with a good thought. And that's why when you go back into the understanding, for example, of books like the Bhagavad Gita or paths of yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga, and so, it all comes back to, they talk about selfless service, they talk about devotion, they talk about compassion, they talk about faith, discernment. And so we can, in the tradition of shamanism, we can summarize everything to keeping the mind in a good thought. And for that purpose, the practices are essential.
Leo, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. You reminded me of a quote from the famous philosopher Lao Tzu. He talks about, watch your thoughts because your thoughts become your words, watch your words because your words become your actions, and watch your actions because your actions become your character. So for me, when my thoughts and my words and my actions are in alignment, this is when we're doing what you're talking about, I think, the sacred art of good living. So very beautiful awareness, and it's really nice to remember and to have these reminders coming from you. So thank you so much. I'm curious to know, around the idea of keeping your thoughts good and thinking on God, what practices do you incorporate in your daily life between ceremonies when you're integrating? when you have possibly anxiety or bad thoughts coming up? What practices do you incorporate? Maybe breathing, meditation, yoga, movement that you feel are useful tools for you in keeping your thoughts pure and good? You can take your time in answering.
So the integration is very important. Like at this moment, we're Mambaying here. As I walk with the Taitas, I one day started like understanding that they are natives. They come from the jungle. They live different. They have a complete different belief system structure. Just to illustrate, for example, one day I was preparing medicine or packing medicine in the jungle, and an Ingano was helping me, and we were talking there, and he mentioned that they wake up sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning to go patrol the territory, which is thousands of hectares of jungle. And at that moment, I'm like, oh, so you go in the jungle at 3 in the morning, walking in the virgin jungle. I'm like, ooh. So that's a different consciousness. See, right there. That's a consciousness that is not necessarily that I'm going to like gather myself necessarily in this lifetime. Not necessarily. I recently moved to Costa Rica, and we're here in the jungle. And at the beginning, it shook me. I'm like, ooh, the jungle, seriously, ooh. So just right there, there's a different understanding. When it comes to a Westerner to go back to life after drinking medicine, there's this collision that happens in between a sense of liberation of belief systems and then society coming back at you, which means commuting, TV, the news, family that have these belief systems that are bringing it in, work, maybe the person's job is in an office, 9 to 5, maybe 9 to 7, working very hard. So all these things pop, So they are in a way somehow unnatural. And then we are coming with a sense of naturalness to all this. So yeah, definitely at that time, there's a process of integration. And this process of integration needs to be taken very slowly and gradually, and gently, with respect. You're asking which practices. Bueno, I have different healing modalities that I use for myself to cleanse my energy and to bring understanding. But mostly I would sit in meditation. And meditation, the way I teach it in my website, I have a course of meditation and prayer that is free. The way I share meditation, or the way it has been understood by myself, is that we sit in meditation. We don't have to sit cross-legged. We can sit on a chair like the one I am now and just like sit normally with the hands here and the spine straight. And that's good enough. The concept of meditation is to allow everything to settle down, to ground. Because there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of turbulence, and there's a lot of excessive movement happening in the person. If we go to Ayurveda, the ancestral science, Ayurveda is a sacred science. So that means that it will never change. It's universal law. And so when you study it, it makes sense. Everything is like common sense. That's why when I was studying, I didn't understand, but during every class, I was like, oh yeah, it's wisdom. So the wisdom is like absorbed, it's felt deep inside. It's a truth for the essence of what we are. So in Ayurveda, it is said that we have an imbalance in movement. Eckhart Tolle says that the status of humans is lost in thought. So it's similar. Excessive movement means that we have an excessive agitation that starts with the thought. Too many thoughts, too much thinking. And that leads to anxiety, that leads to the nervous system being overtaxed. When you see, for example, the thirties, they're just walking slowly, but firmly, you know. Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar, he says, actually, Paramhansa Yogananda used to say it also, actively calm or calmly active, you know, which is what I was referring to before. When the thought is calm, then like this desire to live arises, and then you're just doing. You don't stop. You know, like that's what gurus do. You know, they don't stop. They just engage with life because it's so beautiful to do. But then when you go back to normality of life, doing is equated with like stress. You know, like all we want to do is just chill. We want to rest from life. Okay, life is too much. I want to rest. You know, I want to watch TV. I want to be at the beach. You know, drinking something. Maybe let's be gentle and have a coconut, or maybe something stronger. Doing something, you know, but let me rest. You know, like please just let me rest. Why? Because people are so overtaken by thought that the energy, everything is like an issue. But when you calm the thought and you just like are there with life, and life is flowing, and then you flow with life, you go with it, then you become like a channel of life, you know, and then the purpose is right there. And then there's no stress. Then you're calm in your body, you're relaxed in your body. But all these things, and the word you use, practices, all these things are practices. All these things is a study. We are studying how to achieve all these things throughout our life. And then, it goes like this, you know. Sometimes we get like completely lost in thought, and there's conflict in our minds, in our hearts. Life becomes very challenging. Everything sucks. Everything is terrible. We don't want it. Life, no. I want to disappear from life. But then one day I was studying this, and I remember coming to the thirties, and I said, I have come to the realization that I can be in the moon. I can be on the moon or in the moon. I can be anywhere. You know, I can be at the beach, the most beautiful beach, sitting on a chair, not doing a thing. Or I could be engaged doing whatever it is that I'm doing. But myself internally will always be there. So my inner turbulence will always be there. See? So the inner turbulence arises from excessive thinking. So the whole process of practices, like when it comes to Ayurveda, the way I teach it is to start calming down, slowing down. So we come and sit in meditation, and there's excessive turbulence. Normally, I have sat in meditation many times, you know, and at that moment, all life is like, you know, like turbulence in the heart, in the mind, situations, you know, relationships, and so on. And the last thing you want to do is sit down in meditation. You better like blow rapé or eat some mambe or go swim in the swimming pool, or I don't know, you know, go jogging, go like, I don't know, drink a beer or whatever. Because all those things start numbing and calming down, say. But the turbulence is still there because it has not been dealt with. So the thing is sitting down, grounded, and then right there, when you sit in meditation, the first thing is, okay, I'm not going to move for the next 25, 35, 45 minutes or so. I'm not going to move. And then naturally, everything starts settling down. Everything starts calming down naturally. And it is at that moment when everything has calmed down, when everything becomes silent, because everything will be. You know, meditation is, there's a misunderstanding that we need to calm the mind. What you need is to like just relax the body and become very aware of the body, and then the mind follows, and then it stops. So at that moment, plant medicine becomes very useful, because with plant medicine, those that have drank medicine, they have experienced a silence that arises in the drunkenness of the medicine, maybe after purging, or even going to the bathroom, or after receiving another cup of medicine, or after receiving a healing, or during the medicine itself. There's a drunkenness, a sacred celestial drunkenness. And in that space, we are taking a silence, which is the biggest gift that we can get from the medicine, which is the feeling of God consciousness, the connection with ourselves, with who we are, what we are. It's not really a connection. Those are words, and words in a way are not correct when it comes to consciousness. What that means is that that's what we are. We are exactly that. So the medicine takes us there, to the truth, of this silence. So when we sit in meditation and that turbulence is there, we can remember that silence of the drunkenness. And so we stay there until everything calms down. And then when everything has calmed down, at that moment is the perfect time for prayer. And it's the same when you're in the drunkenness of the medicine. That's the best time for you to pray, for you to connect, for you to share. Because right there at that moment, you're a creator, you're a co-creator with spirit right there. So it's the same when you're in that silence of meditation. At that moment, you have achieved it. And throughout the process of meditation, this is very interesting. Throughout the process of meditation, in the sitting over there, in the calmness, in the allowingness of that turbulence and that agitation to just flow through, there's a wisdom that arises that the person understands. This is a study also. There's something that needs to be studied, but this is what happens. And so the person is there, sitting, quiet, and there could be a million thoughts, resentment towards so and so, even resentment towards life, even resentment towards God, even resentment to a teacher, whatever is arising, this fight with life. How come life is like this? It's so complicated and then you just allow everything to flow. Everything is flowing. Everything is flowing. Everything is flowing. There's different things that could be used in the technique of meditation. One of them is just the observation of the entrance of the nostrils and the respiration. But it's more important to just be there, be there, be there. And then there's a moment in which the person silences. And then there's an understanding that arises from that process. That understanding is wisdom. The Buddha used to say, wisdom arises from meditation. No meditation, no wisdom. Understand that and act accordingly. So that wisdom, what it means is, okay, I went through the process of allowing this turbulence to pass through me. Okay, there was this very deep resentment that I have with this one person or with life, say. So at that moment, in that wisdom is the guidance for proper prayer. So that is the best moment for prayer, because you have understood something that is very, very specific to you, to the person, very specific to the person. And the courage of sitting down, again, the courage of sitting down through that process of suffering, because there's a suffering when you sit down and there's so much, life is heavy, there's so much that you have produced through your thinking and through the engagement of life with wrong thinking and with reaction. There's so much, but you go through that process of allowing it. So the merit, the gift from life, the wisdom that arises, gives you the power, gives you the understanding of prayer. And that prayer is very powerful, because that prayer is the one that you will use to configure life, to start designing, weaving, life in a very beautiful way. You're like, okay, I have this resentment. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for myself. I'm sorry I want to forgive myself, first of all. I want to forgive, please, Spirit, assist me in forgiving, please. My thought has not been good towards this person. So please send blessings to that person so that person can forgive me. So the energy is good, So all these understandings start arising. Oh, life, I have not really engaged properly with life. Okay. Spirit, guide me in engaging properly, in understanding how to engage. And that's a very valuable one. I like also yoga. I think yoga, the practice of yoga, it does not need to be that complex. Many times when we're practicing yoga, we believe that the whole practice has to be like super complex, and the leg over here and the other one over here, and the arms somewhere else. And, that's good. That works very well. If you're there, do it. But just the connection with the movement and the breath, right there is already cleaning the flow of the energy. So it doesn't have to be very complex. It could be just simple. As I said at some point, the beginning, I was just breathing and moving my joints, and that was good enough. Qigong is very, very powerful. Not everybody likes yoga, and Qigong, I actually could say, I'm not going to say or compare that it's more powerful, but it's very, 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 very powerful. It's extraordinary what a person can achieve from the practice of Qigong. Breath work also. Now there's a lot of breath work out in the media or available for people, but you could just do alternate nostril breathing. You could just be driving and taking a deep breath and counting 4, 5 counts, and then holding for 4 or 5 counts, and then exhaling almost double or so, and then holding for 2 counts, and that in itself already brings awareness. It's all about bringing ourselves back to good thinking. So as time progresses and the practices become stronger, and the intention, the intention of the person to walk in this one way, which is the most powerful prayer, like the action, all those things start aligning. And so then we start becoming more aware of the thought, and then we capture the thought right there in the process, and then we don't let the thought go there. And then something very cool happens. What happens at that moment is that when you're able to grab the thought, and the thought does not go wandering, into a wrong thought, at that one moment, a gift from Spirit is given to you, right there. It can be felt, it's like it comes in. It's like a celebration, you're like everything. The whole universe is celebrating with you because this wrong action through the thought is not done. You shifted it, and then you become stronger. You start understanding. Now, this conversation that we're holding here, and I appreciate the time that is being given, I'm sorry for the long conversation, but this conversation brings awareness. And the awareness is just pointers, understanding, So the pointers are good thinking. The pointers are, all of them is the same. The pointers are acceptance of what is, whatever it is. The pointers are surrendering to what is, which is the same. The pointer could be another one, could be presence. Be present is the same thing. Thinking of God, is the presence. All spiritual paths talk exactly about the same thing. It's the same thing, exactly the same thing. It's becoming aware of the force of life, the life force that you are, that is right there, creating the space for everything to happen, including your thought, including the emotion, and including all the different actions. Thinking is an action in itself.
Leo, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, my brother. So many nuggets of wisdom in this conversation. And I think that our listeners are going to be able to receive so much from this sharing. So I really appreciate you taking the time with us today. One thing that I feel like you've done such a beautiful job at articulating today is this element of one path, that there are so many different pathways to God, and that all of the ancient sciences and these ancient ancestral techniques really lead us to the same mountain, the same connection. And so this is one thing that I feel you've done really beautifully in your own personal life, integrating the ancestral science of yoga and Ayurveda with the ancestral tradition of Yagé and the culture of Yagé. And I wanted to ask you if you could share a little bit more about your courses that you have online and opportunities, if anyone is listening that feels called to study more with the wise Leo and hear more of these nuggets of wisdom, how they can tap into these courses, these teachings, and how they can work with you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Do I have time to add a little bit of more information?
Mm-hmm. You have all the time in the world. Mm-hmm. Take your time.
Bueno, there's another wrong belief system that people have, and is that challenges should not exist. Mm-hmm. And challenges are the gateway for everything. So whatever challenge the person is experiencing, no matter what it is, it has to be deeply embraced with gratefulness and with presence. And right there is everything that the person is finding or searching for. In the medicine, they say when the medicine is hitting you strong and the pinta is strong and there's fear arising or there's any emotion, go into it, they say. And right there, when you go into it, the sweetness is right there. It's the same with all challenges. So in the process of of loving what is, of loving the situation that is arising, in that process, you're shedding off everything that created the challenge due to, belief systems or so. And in that process, all the beauty, all the wisdom arises. So, yeah, definitely that little piece is important, So that also reduces all the reactivity to everything. I remember a while back ago, I was in a situation in which there were several things happening in my life that were so challenging. Like I just couldn't find myself what to do, and that's actually when I told the Titans, I said, no matter what I do, no matter where I'm at, it doesn't really matter if I'm in a 5-star hotel and I have 5 people around me serving me and massaging me. Everything is inside, And I remember that day I was walking my dog and it was kind of like in the forest. And I came to the realization, I went back home, I sat in meditation. And I said to Spirit at that moment, and this is for the people, for the audience, I said to Spirit, I said, please allow me to accept absolutely everything as it is, like everything has been as it has been, like it cannot be changed, what is. And at that one moment, something very powerful happened. Absolute peace arose. Complete peace arose. No medicine, no nothing. It was just the deep surrendering to what it was. Something also good for the people to realize, is that whatever has been up to this one moment in the life of any person, that's how it was, and it cannot be changed. And what that means is that it could not have been in any other way. And that is also very important in the process of accepting, because with that piece of wisdom or that piece of information, one can sit in a meditation, accept everything, and then from here, everything that was, comes into terms with you. And then the process of life flowing through you becomes way easier, there's less reactivity to everything. I have 3 courses online. One is called the Self-Healing Journey Program. That one has like 15 and a half hours of videos and information of Ayurveda as a lifestyle in all ways, all information, Ayurveda, yoga, detoxification, nutrition, purification, different techniques of cleansing the body, and the understanding of why everything is done like that. It takes you from the very beginning of like a food combination all the way to doing flushes to cleanse the GI tract, or to doing enemas or things like that. It's 8 weeks long, but it can be taken at the person's speed. I recently released another course called the Detox, which is the Self-Healing Journey Program put into action within 14 days to like reset. And then the person can take the Self-Healing Journey Program with already an understanding of the experience, and everything starts making sense very quickly. And then I have the meditation and prayer course that is on my website. And I'm going to be filming more courses soon, like putting together more information and making it a little bit more accessible for people, so people can take this info and they can apply it quickly, into life. Because it's once you have this, for example, if you know what is the best oil to cook with, or certain spices to use, and why not use these others, then right there, you already have a solution, something quickly, you're already there, you don't have to like figure out and read a lot, you go to Ayurveda, 10,000 years old science, that is sacred, boom, right there. Okay, this is the one. And then right there, you already know. So that's the idea of the courses. And yeah, I'll be sharing the link with you guys so everybody can access it. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Leo, for your time, for being here with us, for sharing all of your beautiful wisdom and your heart. I really feel I'm so grateful to get to have this conversation with you and get to introduce you all to our community and the Four Visions family. So it's truly an honor. Just want to end with one fun question that we are adding to the end of every podcast. We wanted to ask you, what is your favorite plant medicine song these days?
I like two. Solo Dios sabe si vuelvo and El Abismo. Those two songs are the ones that I'm enjoying most lately. Mm-hmm.
Those are beautiful ones.
Beautiful to be in ceremony, and listening to the chants of the healers and the musicians performing. It's just such a celebration of life. It's such an honor and a beautiful thing to do. And so, yeah, whenever people have the chance, come drink some medicine with the taitas, and yeah, everything is right there. If you have questions, you can always reach, if they want to have a consultation or something, an Ayurvedic consultation, I'll be more than glad to assist with that also.
Awesome. We'll make sure to place that information as well in the show notes. Kash, do you have anything else you want to add?
I just want to express my gratitude for the space, the wisdom, all your work over the years. Leo is a great act of service, and we're benefiting from your wisdom. So thank you so much. And throughout this call, we've also been using Mambe, and I want to give gratitude to the spirit of Mambe as well for guiding this conversation so beautifully. And maybe in a future podcast, we could talk more about Mambe and how that works as well. But yeah, I'm just very grateful. Thank you so much for your presence, your energy, and your wisdom. Thank you, Mariah, as well, for the space, and very grateful. Thank you.
I'm very grateful for the space. Thank you so much for allowing and guiding. And again, the same thing that Kash said, thank you for the medicine of Mambe that guided the information to flow in this way. Thank you, Mariah, so much. I wish you good, and all the people of Four Visions, Kash, appreciate all your questions.
Amazing.
Amazing.
From everyone at the Four Visions Market family, we would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and gained many new insights on plant medicines, ancestral wisdom, and much more. Please remember to visit our website at www.fourvisionsmarket.com for more resources and information on plant medicine and spiritual tools. And please don't forget to follow us across social media for regular updates on upcoming episodes. We are grateful for your support and look forward to continuing this path with you all. Until next time, take care, stay present, and stay connected.